Political parties like to make promises about building more infrastructure in the North. You hear it in every election cycle. Dr. Whitney Lackenbauer explains the challenges of fulfilling these promises on this NSP Short.
Infrastructure is incredibly expensive. Anything that looks like an easy win, or I'm going to draw a bad analogy here, which I think you notice I do a lot, like the notion of low-hanging fruit. Not a lot of hanging fruit exists in the Arctic because trees don't grow there. So anything that looks like it's a low-hanging fruit is probably not a fruit and is probably not there. An example would be the Nanisivik port, right? An old legacy facility that the Harper government sort of announced without doing consultations with the Navy. This was done by a small inner circle who said, this is easy. Hey, there's some legacy infrastructure here. We're going to go and refurbish it. We'll have a deep water port, docking facility. Well, here we are in 2025, almost 20 years later, still not an operating facility, a boondoggle. It's been an absolute money pit. But people thought it was going to be a quick win. So I'd say in the Arctic, talk of quick wins often disappoints its boosters, historically, and I think today. Existing infrastructure, so legacy infrastructure, is going to be extremely expensive to maintain given climate change. So we talk often in terms of accessibility, that the Arctic is opening up. I still say, well, actually maintaining access for things like horizontal grade infrastructure, so meaning things like roads or airstrips, right? These are going to become more expensive as you get more heaving because permafrost and the active layer of what's otherwise permanently frozen ground, right, is more active. It breaks things up. Harbor infrastructure, more expensive to build and maintain if you've got more wave action, more storm activity, because you've got less ice cover, for longer periods of the year than before. Canadian Arctic is still going to be frozen. The waters are going to be frozen for most of the year for the foreseeable future. Want listeners to really take that in, but more periods of time where you have more activity. All this means infrastructure is going to be more expensive to maintain. So building new infrastructure, which tends to be orders of magnitude more expensive than building down south, right, with changing conditions, is even more daunting. So what is it going to require? A government is going to have to pick winners and losers, and I mean that in terms of projects. We cannot do it all. Using examples like Nunavut doesn't have roads connecting multiple communities, we should be building roads connecting all the communities in Nunavut. I'd say, listeners, go and look at a map. This is not a realistic idea. This is not a responsible idea, thinking that we're going to network all of Nunavut by roads, right? The answers might be more modest small craft harbors and improvements to some of the snowmobile trails, during the winter time, or more supports to make sure that we're ensuring that those over water, so frozen ice routes, are reliable for different stretches of the year. For some of the big ticket infrastructure items, it's going to mean, how do we look at some of these mega projects? Do we have the political will for, a subsequent prime minister or prime ministers to convince Canadians and sell Canadians on multi-billion-dollar investments with long-term returns on investment? And in my mind, there are messages around doing that, and it has to be inspiring. But if the only rationale for doing this is because we're worried about the Russian or Chinese threat to the region, I think we're going to find that this is not going to be very compelling as a primary rationale. Those are, particularly the Chinese concerns around Chinese investment, are real, and they need to be a factor. But the primary driving force in my mind needs to be something that's more captivating, of seeing how Canadians and our entire country will benefit from these kind of massive mega projects that actually open up new economic opportunities for our country as a whole.